Hey guys, welcome to another Jurassic World Alive video, and today we're gonna go over the 1.8 B tier list. So B tier is it's the fun tier. It's like the tier that when you look for like underrated dinos that aren't terrible, but like they have their shines here and there. So these are the fun dinos generally. Usually they're like either the best non-hybrids or the worst legendaries. Well, not the worst, but like almost the worst, and then all that stuff. But anyways, let's go through them. That might be a bit too general. So, all right, starting off with the Arambor. So Arambor's basically it's like Alanka, but I guess slightly more offensively built, but like not really, because Alanka just have the burst damage. They're kind of weird. Just I guess Arambor just has a bit more consistent damage, while Alanka has that burst damage plus that long invincibility, which is great. But yeah, it's just mainly used for its swap and invincibility. Overall, its stats, it has pretty crappy damage, base damage. The multipliers don't help as well. It only has like a 1.5. So overall, it's not going to do too much damage. It's just basically here for swap and invincibility, right? To take on a big hit. Moving on to Blue. Blue got a bit better. Quite a bit better, from the last two patches. So it gained precise pounce, right? And now it has distraction as well. Precise pounce, it's interesting. It's just basically a pounce that bypasses cloak and evasive abilities. Like cloak and evasion dinos, they got like obliterated so bad. Even last patch, they added so many abilities to counter dinos with cloak or evasive, and then now this patch, the cloak got nerfed even more. Like, damn, it was poor dinos, man. It's really sad for them. But anyways. Good for Blue. Blue got better, so there's that. Also, distraction, that's a great basic attack. Overall, 131 speed, lacks in base damage, but hey, got that pounce on turn 1, and it's more of a defensive built raptor, as defensive as a raptor can be, to the extent that it could be defensive. So there's that. Anyways, moving on to Brachy. Brachy is not a terrible tank. Obviously it got worse. It got slightly worse with the nerfs, but it's still over there. The crit nerf also hurt it a lot. It's probably worse than Draft Titan now, so there's always that. But overall, just it has decent stats, even though it has really crappy base damage. It does have a rampage, also bellow that that can help in certain situations. Pretty fun dino to use. 111 speed, it's where you would want it. It's as fast as a slow dino can be, right? That's basically the fastest of the slow dinos. Moving on to Delta. Delta got worse this patch, just because it gets one shot by a Dracocera swapping right now, so that kind of sucks for it. But overall, its kit still does what it wants to do. 131 speed with okay-ish base damage. You're just here for a pounce and then impact and run into a dino with a swapping ability. If you're not, running into anything strategic, like either a dino with a swapping ability, or a dino with a counter, or maybe just a tank to take a hit or whatever, then Delta's crap. So it's really situational. So, but if you do have that, a really good, impact and run into Dracocera or something, it's great. It's great. Draco Gen 2, any of those. So there's Delta. Moving on to Dimodactylus. Dimodactylus is nothing too much change for it, honestly. So you got its 126 speed, crappy base health, crappy base damage. It's probably one of the worst B tier dinos, so there's that, unfortunately. Instant Pinning Strike plus Lethal Wound is a great combo, especially if you could swap it in first. Swap it in, Lethal Wound, Instant Pinning Strike if it's still alive by then. You would very likely also kill your opponent's dino. So there's that. Shielding Strike's not a terrible move. Kind of situational, impact and run. If you can survive until an impact and run, good for you, but generally it's not that useful of a move, especially with this very low base damage. But if you get it out, you could swap back in for another swap and wound. Even if it's gonna die, you're gonna take out 25% of your opponent's max HP for at least the turn 1 that you haven't lost your game yet. So, moving on. Oh, man, I'm being mean to some of these dinos. I don't even know. I'll try to be less mean again on these dinos. They're not bad. They're not bad. They're just not, you know, they all have their problems, and you know that's why they're not higher on the tier list. But you know, again, they're not terrible. Moving on, Elasmotherium. Elasmotherium has pretty interesting stats. It's a really defensive dino. Health, not the best for a tank, but you know, it's there. 30% armor is great. 1.1k damage, not terrible for a tank. Could be worse. 108 speed. It's not horrible. That's what I would categorize 108 speed as. So, looking at its moves are great. Definite Rampage, obviously it's a Rampage, so that's always good. And it's Definite Rampage, which is probably one of the better Rampages in the game. Bypasses armor, shield, cloak, evasion, all that stuff. Does have a 1-turn delay, so you could use Rending Strike on turn 1, which that's 33% of your opponent's HP as armor-piercing damage, so basically, you know, and destroy shields as well. So it's like a lethal wound for 1 turn, kind of, that gets screwed over by distracts. So there's that. Elasmotherium, great dino. I personally like it a lot. I think it's really great. It's probably one of my best, or my favorite non-hybrids to use in a non-hybrid situation. Moving on to Erlichosaurus. This got bumped up a tier. Not that it really got better. It's just that, you know, it has a bit more uses now, right? 129 speed, almost 1.5k damage. Rampage, minimal speed up, strike and run. It's classic case of a revenge killer. You come in, minimal speed of strike. You're going to be faster than whatever dino your opponent's going to throw at you. That doesn't, you know, not counting priority moves or swap-ins, but you know, for the most part, you're going to be faster than your opponent's dino. Almost 1.5k damage with the Rampage, and then the strike and run. If you could chain that into a swap-in move, a counter-attacker, a tank to save its life, since it doesn't have too much HP itself, it's probably not going to stay around for too long. You know, overall a great kit. And moving on to Ehrlich Gen 2. Ehrlich Gen 2 is probably better than Ehrlich Gen 1 now. It used to be a debate which one's better. It used to be Ehrlich Gen 1 was slightly better, but now Ehrlich Gen 2 is clearly better. Just because of the buff to debilitating distraction, not any buff to itself, just the buff to the move. They took down the delay on it. You could use it on turn 1. 75% damage down for 2 turns while still doing that 1 times damage is pretty crazy. Of course, it doesn't have as much damage as Ehrlich Gen 1 does, but it has more survivability, so there's that. Also, slightly more health, not that it really matters too much in most situations. And same speed, so there you go, Ehrlich Gen 2. Moving on, Draftine. Draftine is like a better Brachy. It trades a lot of things for just overall just a more solid, a more offensively, you know, minded dino with the swap and slow, which is actually incredibly underrated. It's a really underrated swap and move, swap and slow, so there's that. Of course, has lower crit rate, which doesn't really matter anymore since crit got nerfed to oblivion. So there's that, basically just a slightly better Brachy. Moving on to Kendra. Kendra is probably one of the better dinos in this place. It has extremely high turn 1 damage. If you go with a Thago, 1.4 base damage and a 0.5 counter, that's an extra 700 damage there. It's pretty crazy, right? That's what, 2.8k plus, that's 3k, 4.2k damage on turn 1. That's a lot of damage on turn 1, right? So, you know, you see that, you're happy. Instant distraction paired with the medium counterattack with decent base damage. 700 every 3 turns for basically free, unless your opponent is immune, has cleanse or security strike. That's a win in my book, right? Thagomizer, security strike, one of the best moves in the game. It just doesn't have too much utility-wise, you know, all it does is slow, not too much. But in terms of utility, obviously it does a lot of damage, so there's that. Speed 120 is great. I don't even know why the heck this thing's 120, but it is 120, so there's that. And also really, really good health for what it is. Lacks armor that all the other Stegos, well, not all the other except for Tajango, but you know, most of the other Stegos have, but it makes up for the damage, so there's that. Moving on to Metricon. Still a legendary that you don't see too often down here in the ladder, but overall it's a great dino. 125 speed. Kind of sucks a lot. 125 speed is one of the speed tiers you do not want to be in, but unfortunately for Metricon, you know, here's where it is, I guess. Really crappy base damage. Overall, an interesting kit. Immune is always nice to have. Distracting Impact is nice, especially considering its HP, which isn't the greatest, but you know, it's not terrible either for what it is. Defense Shattering Impact, that's a great move. Defense Shattering Strike, this is where it kind of sucks because, like, its base damage is really bad. Not saying 2 Impact isn't great, but then, like, your third move is just a regular strike, which they turned into a move, which kind of sucks. And then you also have Null Strike, which isn't a terrible move, although it's one of the... yeah, it's not the best basic strike you could get, right? But then again, it's immune, so you probably don't need anything like a Cling Strike or Superiority, so Null Strike's not terrible for what it is. So there's Metricon. Moving on to Tanny. Tanny's one job is to kill an Indoraptor, which it does really well. It kills Indoraptors, right? But aside from that, it does a lot of other things as well. 130 speed, well, now outclassed by a lot of the 131s, it still does its thing against the 129 and lowers. 1,560 base damage with a turn 1 null impact. That's just a lot of damage with 130 speed, 3,000 health. You know, what would you expect with something with, you know, that this fast and this much base damage? If it had like more health, it would be a force to reckon with, right? And Armor Piercing Strike is a often overlooked move for Tanny. You know, Armor Piercing Strikes, it's not a bad basic move. It's a really great basic move, especially for Tanny. You're dealing with tanks and stuff that would usually kill you, but Armor Piercing Strike just helps you to get that extra little damage in before you die. So there's that. Moving on to Rex. Rex is just Rex. Rex, everyone knows Rex. Solid, tank buster, slow, okay-ish health, super high damage, and all it does is break shields and break armors. So, you know, same thing what you would expect from Rex, although it got nerfed because of the crit nerf, but they all did, so, you know, what can you do? Got a small damage buff, has 1.9k damage now, the highest in the game, as it always was, but, you know, that's, if they, like, nerf crit even more and they just give it more damage, it's gonna, one day it might even peak to, like, 2,000 base damage, which would be pretty cool, like a 4,000, just straight up 4,000 damage Rampage. Defense Shattering Rampage, that would be pretty awesome. But obviously has its downsides. One of the slowest items in the game. Not the slowest, but you know, almost there. Pado 101. But 102 is, it's pretty bad. I'd say it's pretty bad. But everything else, you know, it's Rex. Everyone knows what you're gonna get from Rex, so it's expected. It's nothing surprising. It's always been floating around these tiers, so you know, there you go. So anyways, that's gonna be it for this one. Just going over B tier, and you know, some pretty fun dinos. I personally like a lot of these to use when I'm, you know, not fighting with meta dinos, just messing around. Last Ethereum's a great dino. I love using it. Ehrlich Gen 2 is great. Kendra, I love using it as well. Diamondactylus is always fun to use. Metricon is a really fun dino to use, actually. You know, so yeah, anyways, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.